just getting started. This is South Coast Tonight with Chris McCarthy and Marcus Farrow. They've got you covered on all the news of the day, from local issues to politics on both sides of the aisle. This is the place where the movers and shakers come to be heard, to listen, and where they're held accountable. This is South Coast Tonight on WBSM.
Good evening. Welcome to South Coast Tonight. Hope you guys enjoyed the Pats game last night. I'm Marcus Farrow. Chris McCarthy will not be here with us tonight. He should be back tomorrow. But now we're joined by State Rep from R-Seekonk, Steve Howitt. Hi, Rep Howitt. How are you?
Hey, good, Marcus. How are you?
Good. So, you had legislation that was passed through the House that was aimed at curbing the theft of catalytic converters. I know that there was some concern that it wouldn't pass the Senate in time, and my understanding is that it did not.
Well, we still have another couple weeks, so
okay.
We have our fingers crossed. We're lobbying hard to try and get it put before the informal session, so that way it can be sent to the governor and signed. As you're aware, New Bedford just recently arrested 3 individuals for stealing catalytic converters. And what people don't realize, aside from the fact that it causes inconvenience and an expense in many cases, especially if someone does not have comprehensive, I would recommend to your listeners, given the extent of the crime wave that not only we have in Massachusetts, but throughout the country, that they check with their insurance to see if they have comprehensive and that it would cover a stolen catalytic converter.
So, you're a car guy. I'm not a car guy. I don't know what a catalytic converter is.
Okay, a catalytic converter was required by the government in the early 80s to be put on all cars, and what it does is that through palladium, platinum, and rhodium, which are all very expensive minerals, it helps to take the pollutants out of the car exhaust. So you have a catalytic converter, and then you have a muffler. So it goes from the engine to the exhaust manifold to a catalytic converter to the muffler to the exhaust pipe. And through that process, when it goes through the catalytic converter, which is it burns very hot, it will burn off a lot of the carbons that are expelled from the engine.
Is the fact that it contains expensive minerals the reason why it's so hot on the market?
Well, that's part of it. And then there are people who buy them and resell them to, let's say, a repair shop that has a particular car that had a stolen catalytic converter that a customer brought in. Right. They can't find a used one, or I should say they cannot find a aftermarket one because of the supply chain problems. Right. So they may look online. You can go to Facebook Marketplace and you find people advertising buying and selling catalytic converters. And, who knows where these cats, as I say cats because that's what the lingo is, where they came from. There's no serial number on these catalytic converters.
We're speaking with State Rep Steve Howitt. He put forward a bill that passed the House that's supposed to curb the theft and sale of catalytic converters, and it's currently sitting in the Senate. So, Rep Howitt, have you had any conversations with Senate President Spilka about this bill? Do you have any confidence?
I asked, it's a bipartisan bill.
Right.
Many Democrats have signed on to it in the House, and there are many Democrat senators that I've spoken to, aside from the three Republicans out of 40 in the Senate.
Right.
But I did speak with Bruce Tarr and asked him to present it for me, which he did. He is working on it, as well as a number of legislative agents who represent organizations such as new car dealers, Mass State Police, a vast number of other, the Mass, not the Mass State Police, but the Mass Police Chiefs Association. They all feel that this is necessary. I believe there are over 25 states that already have some legislation dealing with catalytic converters on the books. And this would be another state. In fact, today I spoke with a representative in Rhode Island who wants to put forth a bill which would only enhance any other bills on neighboring states to make it more difficult to dispose of these catalytic converters.
We're speaking with State Rep Steve Howitt. He has a bill on the that passed the House that's in the Senate that is aimed at curbing the sale and theft of catalytic converters. There were two catalytic converter thieves in New Bedford that were recently picked up by the Bristol County DA's office. So, Rep Howitt, how does this bill, if it's enacted into law, how will it curb the theft and sale of catalytic converters?
Well, what we're trying to do is to help dry up the market. What it would do is any licensed scrapyard, or a licensed secondary used dealer, because there are different licenses that different companies do get in order to be in business legally to deal in scrap and catalytic converters. It would require the person bringing the catalytic converter in to show an ID and to give a chain of custody as to where this catalytic converter came from. It would also require the scrapyard to hold that catalytic converter. It would allow police to review the log of who brought in the catalytic converter and how often that person might be bringing in a catalytic converter. And then the person would no longer be able to be paid in cash. They would be paid with a check. Again, it creates a chain of custody and a chain to see where and who are bringing in catalytic converters. So it would discourage these people from going locally, which would in turn cause them to try and find another market. And hopefully, if enough bordering states make it difficult, now all these catalytic converters have to go someplace, and again, it makes it more difficult for them to find a market for people to buy these catalytic converters. It doesn't stop the theft. That's a very difficult thing to do unless you catch a person in the act with a reciprocating saw that's battery powered. One of my friend of mine has been hit twice. I actually had a pickup truck, an F-250, an earlier model, that was stolen, and it was recovered with the catalytic converter cut off and naturally the steering column jacked. And I think it cost me about $2,500 to get it repaired because it wasn't covered under insurance. I did not have comprehensive on it.
Well, if it becomes much more difficult to sell, it would probably disincentivize the theft of catalytic converters. Am I correct about that?
I think it would, and the few bad eggs in the business, if there are some, it would discourage them to turn the other eye and say, okay, why don't you just bring those in, and we don't care where they came from.
More than I think half the other states have this. I think I read there was 26 states.
I believe so.
So we're speaking with State Rep Steve Howitt. So are there any concerns that have been raised with this bill? I know it passed the House without any objection.
I understand there are some concerns from some large businesses that are in the scrap business, more national businesses that look at various states. They have business within the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. There has been some concern from their end, maybe because it means a little bit more paperwork. But I think anyone who would be against this is pretty much aiding and abetting the thieves, because they're encouraging them to continue in this illegal activity.
And you filed this out of, you said you had a car that was stolen in the catalytic. This is something that you've heard from your constituents and people throughout this area and throughout the Commonwealth, that this is a big problem.
Oh, it is. New car dealers are getting jacked. I was told the other day, just in Rhode Island, for example, there's a company in Smithfield that puts bodies on cabin chassis, and in one night they had a bunch of trucks stored outside at an adjacent property, and they went in, and I was told, and I did not know whether or not this is true, but I was told that there were over 100 catalytic converters stolen in one evening.
We're speaking with State Rep Steve Howitt. He filed a bill that passed the House. It's in the Senate that is aimed at curbing the sale of stolen catalytic converters. So, has there been any support? So, let's say this bill is enacted into law, and they have to report these dealerships and scrapyards. They have to report to the police whenever they receive a catalytic converter. They
don't have to report. They just have to have a log that's available for the police to review should the police departments want them to provide it. And again, most a lot of scrapyards, there are people who we call them gypsies, who are independents, and they buy scrap, and you'll see an ad, we buy scrap or whatever, who go into these salvage yards. It's not going to affect them. But if you bring in a catalytic converter, you have to prove where it came from. Yeah. And when you get paid for that catalytic converter, the company has to write you a check.
And they have to hold it for 10 days.
They would have to hold the catalytic converter on their premise for 10 days. And we're talking used, not new catalytic converters.
Would there be... So if this log's available to the police, if there's a record of these catalytic converter transactions, would this allow the police to trace catalytic converters back to their original owners?
We would hope it would, because part of it they would have to give information as to the make and model of the vehicle, of where the catalytic converter came from. So
we're speaking with State Rep Steve Howitt. He has a bill that's currently in the Senate that already passed the House, that is aimed at curbing the sale of stolen catalytic converters. So is there anything else on this legislation that people should know about?
I think that pretty much covers it. There are some fines, and I think that's important also. Okay. But I think in the end, again, it for people to fully understand it, we already have laws on theft, but what this does is it tries to drive the market. And if we can get more states to follow through, then it becomes more and more difficult for these thieves to dispose of the items, because many of them aren't sophisticated enough to break them open and know what the platinum or the palladium. I mean, I've been told by law enforcement that organized crime is involved in these catalytic converter thefts. California, I believe, ranks number 1 in catalytic thefts. So you take a car like a Prius, and that is a very popular vehicle to hit, because I believe it has 2 or 3 catalytic converters on it. But pickup trucks, you can easily roll underneath it with a Sawzall. You're in and out in under five minutes. People who park in shopping centers are being hit. New car dealerships are being hit. Even on camera, they're very sophisticated. They may come in with a stolen plate or a stolen car, so that even if you have cameras, you're not going to be able to find these people. It's very difficult. The police almost have to find them in the act. So because of the difficulty of catching the thief in the act, it's the idea of how they're going to fence it. A few years ago, they had pawn shops, PAWN pawn shops, as very similar, where people coming in with goods have to prove where it came from, and they have to provide information. So therefore, should it be a stolen property, it would be another tool for the police to try and find who perpetrated that theft and where that particular property came from.
So, Rep. Howitt, this, it's currently you guys are in informal sessions. This has to pass the Senate with unanimous consent. If even one senator objected to it, it wouldn't pass. But let's say it doesn't pass, you'd have to refile the bill, and I think you've been on record saying it could take quite a while for this bill to come to be enacted into law.
As you know, we have a 2-year session, and fortunately, I was reelected, so I will be able to refile if necessary. The problem is that there are over 5,000 bills that are filed every session,
Right.
and so it would have to go through the whole process again through the various committees. And as I said, it could be a year. And in the meantime, you have people who are suffering financially. You have people who are suffering from not being able to use their vehicle and the inconvenience. So I doubt there would be any of my colleagues who would vote against it. It's just a matter of moving it through the process. And again, unfortunately, we're at the end of the session, and there are a lot of bills that still need to be heard. And so it's a matter of getting it queued up. I'm hoping that the Senate President feels that it's an important enough bill that affects every constituent and every person that owns a car in Massachusetts. It would rise somewhat to the top to be heard and hopefully pass before the session ends.
Do you have any idea why it hasn't yet? Why we're so close to the end of the session and it hasn't passed?
I can't speak for the Senate or the Senate President's office, or that's something that they would have to provide. But as I said, they do have a lot of bills that they are reviewing before the end of the session, and this was a late file, which was able to be moved through pretty quickly through the House, and many people from both sides of the aisle worked very hard and diligently to get it passed and moved through the House. And it's just unfortunate that where time is working against us.
So I looked at just a cursory glance at your co-sponsors. I saw some South Coast representation. I saw Paul Schmidt as well. It signed on to this bill. I know a lot of these reps have already signed on to pass the House. So if people want to advocate for this bill, how would they go about doing that?
Well, they could call the State House 617-722-2000 and ask to speak to their senator and ask that they push this through.
So we're speaking with State Rep Steve Howitt of R-Seekonk. So you said this was a bipartisan bill. I'm just curious because you're a member of a fairly shrinking minority in the House. How do you navigate legislative? Is it more difficult for you to navigate your legislative goals being a member of the minority?
Sometimes it is, but if you have good legislation, it really doesn't matter whether it's Democrat or Republican. Good legislation is good legislation.
Right. So Steve Rep of R-Seekonk, he's got a bill that is, if it is enacted into law, it's currently sitting in the Senate, will aim to curb the sale of stolen catalytic converters. So, Rep Howitt, I got one more question. I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you. One of your former legislative aides is running for city council here. Do you have any impressions of his work as a legislative aide under you, Jake Ventura?
He was wonderful. I was sad to lose them. Unfortunately, legislative aides move on. The salary isn't as great as it should be, but he was very efficient and worked very well on both sides of the aisle with the other aides and the other reps at the time that he did work in my office. I was very lucky to have him.
State Rep Steve Howitt of R-Seekonk, I appreciate you coming on to talk about this legislation. I hope it passes. If not, we'll have you back on to talk about this and maybe some other legislative goals that you have throughout the next session.
That would be wonderful. I appreciate it. Now, just a question. Is your show a call-in or is it just a show going out? Because when I was on the Dan Ray show recently, people called in, and it was amazing how many people had their own stories of having catalytic converters stolen from their vehicles.
We have we do a call-in show, and we also have app chat messages, so we'll probably get some people throughout the program that will call in and send app chat messages. I know we've had that throughout our day programming, as well as after the New Bedford catalytic converter thief. So hopefully we'll have some more discussion on this going forward.
Well, I hope you'll send me some of the notices that you receive regarding this. But again, it's very important for all these people to contact whoever their rep is and ask that they support it and that they can do anything possible to try and get it moved through the Senate before the end of the session.
State Rep Steve Howitt from R-Seekonk, I appreciate you coming on.
Thank you very much.
That was State Rep Steve Howitt from R-Seekonk. He has that legislation that is aimed at curbing the sale of stolen catalytic converters. Catalytic converters theft has been a big problem here throughout the South Coast and throughout the Commonwealth. Again, you saw that the Bristol County DA's office had just tracked down 2 individuals who had stolen catalytic converters before. So if you have any questions, or if you want to talk about it, if you have your own experience with catalytic converters, you can give us a call or shoot us an app chat message at 508-996-0500. This is South Coast Tonight. I'm Marcus. We're going to take a quick break, and then we'll be right back.
New Bedford's News Talk Station.
Green eyes, fried rice, I could cook an egg on it. Late night game time, coffee on the stove. Your sweet ice cream, but you could use a flake.
I know Jess has played Harry Styles before, but it's a great album, so I'll play some Harry Styles too. Welcome back to South Coast Tonight. I'm Marcus. 508-996-0500 is how you can get on the program. We also take your messages on the WBSM app chat. That was Rep Steve Howitt. He's a Republican state rep from R-Seekonk, and he has a bill that was passed with bipartisan support through the House and is currently in the Senate that aims to curb the sale of stolen catalytic converters. The same law exists in 26 other states. So you'll remember in New Bedford, they just caught 2 they caught 2 people that were accused of stealing catalytic converters and selling them. It would require people who buy catalytic converters to have a record for the police to access if they would like. They would require the person who bought the catalytic converter to hold it for 10 days before reselling it. It would create fines, a system of fines, up to $2,500 for failing to properly carry out the laws and regulations regarding the sale of catalytic converters. So again, that law exists in 26 other states. I also appreciate Rep Howitt, him being a car guy, him explaining to me what a catalytic converter is, so that because I'm not a car guy, much to my late father's chagrin. I'd always have to ask him car questions. I still don't know car stuff. I know a little car stuff, but I don't know. Some people are car people. Some people are not car people. I am firmly entrenched in the latter category of not being a car person. So if you want to support that bill, you can. Calling your state senator, calling your state rep, and letting them know about that law and why you think it's important. So I think it's a good law because it doesn't. This is a problem. It's a crime that's happening, and it's devastating people financially. There's often little recourse or little ability to find the people that did that, to receive your catalytic converters back. This, I think, disincentivizes the sale of catalytic converters for people, because if they make it harder, if the police have to have records of it for the police to hold, and if they have to write an actual check, if the transaction has to be recorded, then it will be more difficult and less profitable for people to steal the catalytic converter if there's a substantial amount of risk involved in that. I do like that. Because typically when, there's a crime that's happening and there's a problem with it, one of the solutions oftentimes is to try to enforce stricter penalties, criminal penalties on that. And I'm never a fan of that, because I always think that ends up disproportionately affecting people who are typically already pretty brutally impacted by the disadvantages in the criminal justice system. But this, I think, really looks at the market and tries to drive up the market, tries to dry up the market on stolen catalytic converters. So that's a big problem. Again, if you want to lobby your state rep or your state senator to get that bill passed, there's 2 weeks left of informal sessions. So basically, with informal sessions, how that works, so they have 2-year sessions, and on typically 2-year sessions, the sessions end in an election year for the state legislature. So this year the sessions ended on July 31st. And you'll remember all those crazy things happened on July 31st. The gambling bill and a bunch of other things that were passed, and there was some things that didn't pass, like the economic development bill that ended up passing in the informal sessions. Now, with informal sessions, the difficulty is that you need unanimous consent. So there's no roll call voting. So there's some bills that you can't pass. There's some bills that you can pass, but you need roll call voting, which means you can't do roll call voting. So any bill that needs a roll call voting, like borrowing money, where people have to go and say aye, they can't do it. But in informal sessions, they just need unanimous consent, basically. So like I think more or less a voice vote. And Rep. Howitt says he doesn't believe that, doesn't see why any elected official, any senator would be opposed to this law. So again, I'll have a column on that tomorrow, but you can call your state rep, you can call the state house, you can call your state senator and ask them to lobby for that law. Again, that was Rep. Steve Howitt from R-Seekonk advocating for that law. 508-996-0500 saying in the program. Rep. Howitt is a member of a caucus that, this is another story I want to talk about because it was pretty crazy. A member of a caucus that has, as of now, shrunken by 2. I think there was 29 Republican reps in the House. There are now 27. I believe that's the math, or 26, actually, shrunken by 3, because Tim Whalen, who left his seat in Brewster on the Cape to run for Barnstable County Sheriff, he lost to Donna Buckley, who I had on the program. You'll remember the new Barnstable County Sheriff. His seat was filled by a Democrat. His seat was taken by a Democrat. There is a state rep in the northern part of the county, I believe in Essex County, Lenny Mira. He was a Republican state rep. He lost his state rep seat by a single vote. Margaret Scarsdale Margaret Scarsdale beat Lenny Mira, Republican state rep, by a single vote. One vote. Your vote matters in these local elections a great deal. I hope and I hope these vote tallies are indicative of that. I hope that's the one takeaway I think you can have from these state rep elections, is that one vote flipped a guy out of his seat, State Rep Lenny Mira. And on the North Shore towards Gloucester, I think Gloucester and Pepperell, there was a state rep seat that was held by a Republican for a long time. That seat was flipped. That seat was also flipped. The Republican had left. She retired. And the Democrat won in that race by 7 votes. And what's interesting about that race up in the North Shore is that Jim Lyons and Jim Lyons' circle, his friends, this is what Howie Carr had said last week, were lobbying, basically were advocating for a write-in campaign, because the Republican state rep candidate over there was like friendly with Charlie Baker and more, I guess, gravitated toward that wing of the party. And so they had a write-in campaign in that race. And again, the Republican candidate in a seat that they held for years lost by 7 votes. There were about 68 write-ins. 68 write-ins in a state rep race is quite a bit. So, needless to say, if those if even a few of those let's just say 8 of those state rep candidates had flipped their had decided not to. I mean, state rep voters had decided to vote for the Republican on the ballot instead of the Jim Lyons candidate, they would have held that seat. Now everybody's been big to blame Lyons for all the problems in the state GOP, and he is a problem for them. He's not doing a good job. He's not running good candidates, and it's obviously, decimating the Republicans' very slim electoral foothold in the state. I think the problems are a little bit more broad than that, than just him. I don't think anything's changed by just getting rid of him, but I think that shows. I think these down ballot races have shown that there is, I think, a significant, problem with the state leadership and their ability to do their job, the state GOP leadership and their ability to do their job, which is helping Republicans win down ballot races. Now, me personally, I'm okay with it. I'm okay with it. But I think if you're a Republican, you're probably like, what the hell? And I know the state rep that lost the seat by 1 vote had previously said, and he said on Howie Carr that someone said it to him. The candidates who's running for against Jim Lyons, Amy Carnevale, she had said to Lenny Mira had said to him, "I feel like the state party actually hurt me this time instead of helped me," which they definitely did. They hurt a lot of down ballot Democrats. I think to include Tom Hodgson. Right? I think to include Tom Hodgson. Tom Hodgson lost a close election, and obviously Hero ran a great campaign. He campaigned his tail off, but I think if the state, if there was a more cohesive state party and with better candidates higher up on the ballot, I think that race could have gone the other way. 508-996-0500 is how you can get in the program. Tell you what, I'm going to take a break now, and we'll be right back. This is South Coast Tonight. I'm Marcus.
1420 WBSM, where freedom of speech lives. The Marcus McCarthy. South Coast Tonight is the place to react to all of the day's news and where they make some news of their own.
I've been in the right place.
Back to the talk now on WBSM.
I remember when I lost my mind. There was something so pleasant about that place. Even your emotions have an echo in so much space. And when you're out there.
Welcome back to the show. I'm Marcus. 508-996-0500 is how you get in the program. Chris will be back tomorrow, and we're going to have a special guest in studio. Ted Nesi from Channel 12 WPRI is going to be joining us in studio. We're really excited. We've had Ted on the program quite a bit during the election season, actually. Cool. During the election season, and we had, he called in actually on election night when Chris and I pirated the airwaves when we took the board back from the syndicated programming and stayed on for an extra hour to get some more results in the Bristol County Sheriff's race. Ted Nesi was just driving home, and he called in. He was part of our election night special too. So he's going to come in studio. We're going to talk politics. It's going to be a lot of fun. Hopefully you guys can call in, send some app chat messages at 508-996-0500. That's how you can get on. So that was Steve Howitt again at the beginning of the program. If you got any stories on catalytic converters, I'm definitely interested in hearing them, but I'm interested in hearing whatever you got to say at 508-996-0500. Good evening.
Hi, good evening.
What's up?
Yeah, I was listening to the political guest, and I'm in favor of what he's doing. I wish him the best. He should, I think, it's common sense stuff.
Yeah.
I think he'll get it passed.
Yeah, I hope so.
I'm happy that somebody's concerned about it.
I know Senate, exactly. It's a big problem. I know Senate President Spilka hadn't responded to other media outlets for comment on whether or not the bill was going to be passed, but like Rep. Howitt said, he doesn't know why a elected official, in the Senate wouldn't support it. So, well,
it's always a $64 question when you got something that apparently he started through, and I thought he made a good acquittal of himself. That I think he's sure-footed and level-headed on this, and to have a problem with the Senate, I'm guessing he's kind of new at the game, and maybe
no, he's been around for a while. He's been in the state house for about 10 years, but he's in the state house. He's in the state Senate's its own body with its own people and whatever issues they may have with the legislation, but. I think it might just be a matter of, priorities for Spilka. Maybe Spilka isn't prioritizing this legislation.
Well, I think if it fails, I think it's strong enough to create what they call referendum.
Yeah, it could be.
I think it's got that much legs.
It could be. I mean, by the time the referendum would come around to the ballot would be 2024. So hopefully he'd get it. Hopefully he'd get it passed by then.
It's never the wrong time to submit the right thing legislatively.
Could have been.
And, it's been going on for tens of years, so I mean, It's better late than never for the people who it'll help.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a hell of a thing to lose an expensive item like that and really have no recourse to make yourself whole again. You're victimized twice. The insurance company's not going to help you, and there's nowhere to run to. I just think, though, this would be a slam dunk if we did have a registry of motor vehicles police force like we had years ago. The registry of motor vehicles had law enforcement people. This would be, I'm telling you, they would lobby this politician. This thing would get passed overnight.
Yeah.
Because the registry used to have a lot of clout. They were the ones out there if you had an automobile with a bad fender or a bumper hanging off of it or a cardboard window on the side. And that was their job. And speeding and everything else. But it seems like we lumped everything onto our local constabulary, and I don't know how the hell they can enforce any of this.
Yeah. No, I hear you. It's definitely
in an age of computers, the registry police would be the most dynamic thing going.
Yeah.
And when you get a registry ticket, I want to hear anybody say they ever got a registry ticket fixed at City Hall. Never happened.
Hey, I got a long break. I got to take it, but call back.
Take that long break.
All right.
I'm glad you brought him on. It was very informative.
Good, great. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Thank you very much.
WBSM is hosting
Santa is going to be here on Friday with Chris and me. He's going to take calls. So you have your kids, your grandkids, even if you want to call Santa yourself and ask and tell him what you want for Christmas. We'd love to have you on. So that's going to be from at 7 o'clock, 7 to 8. Santa Claus himself will be here in studio on Friday. So you can give us a call, or you can have your kids or your grandkids, your nieces, nephews, cousins, whoever. Have your kids call Santa and tell him what you want. And he can probably get it. He's Santa, after all. So I'm really excited for that on Friday. That's put on by the New Bedford Firefighters Local 841 Union, and I'm really, really looking forward to it. I think that's going to be a great event. So, all right, we've got Jeremy Borges and Chris from the Hells Angels Cape Cod. They're going to be on at 8:05 to talk about a toy drive they're holding. So we will talk to you on the other side of the news break. I have a column actually on that on WBSM.com.